On Monday Night Football, the Seahawks played the Eagles. And the Seahawks won 23-24. They go to 8-3. The Eagles lose. They came into this week first place in the East. They drop all the way to third. And the takeaway from this game is that DK Metcalf is a monster. DK Metcalf is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Crazy stat, if you didn't know. I'm pretty sure everyone knows this by now. The commentators kept saying it. Every time the Seahawks play, they always comment on this because DK Metcalf is always a talking point. He was the 9th wide receiver picked in the 2019 draft. And he might be the best one. There was a lot of elite wide receivers picked in that draft, but he might be the best one. Unfortunately for the Eagles, they picked a wide receiver. They were one of the teams that picked one of those wide receivers before DK Metcalf. They picked JJ Arcega Whiteside. He was selected ahead of DK Metcalf in the second round, and he has 2 catches for 45 yards this season, so they're not really getting their best return on their investment. And DK Metcalf, 10 catches, 177 yards in this game. For the season, he has 58 receptions, 1,039 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Is a crazy stat line. He's having a ridiculous second year in the NFL. He's turning into one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And I think one of the storylines for this game was Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, pregame went up to DK Metcalf and gave him like a slight. He kind of gave him a compliment, but not really. He told him that he's a great wide receiver, but that he was with the Lions when they had Megatron, and that DK Metcalf is a good wide receiver, but he's not Megatron yet. And I don't know what he was trying to do. I don't know why he had to mention that. I think he could have said it differently. He could have been like, "Oh, you're one of the greats is Megatron, and you remind me of him," or something like that. But the way he said it, that you're good, but you're no Megatron, that's just putting fuel to the fire. You're just firing up DK Metcalf, one of the best wide receivers, and you have small cornerbacks that can't really keep up with him, and it was clearly visible to everybody during the game. 10 receptions, 177 yards. Jim Schwartz didn't have the best, wherewithal to know what was going on. I think maybe you could say that after the game when you see the score, like you don't want to give one of the opponent's elite players more motivation to go out and just wreck your defense, especially when you're the defensive coordinator too. If it would have been like an offensive guy, maybe it would have been different. The wide receiver coach, or maybe Peterson, if he would have gone up to him, you're like, "Oh man, you're not Megatron, but you remind me of him." I don't know. Coming from an offensive guy, maybe that it comes off a little bit different. But when it's the defensive coordinator of the team and the coach is offensive minded, so he's the one responsible for the defense. No one really has that much input in it. It's his show. I think that just adds a lot of motivation to DK Metcalf. And you saw it in the game, 10 receptions, 177 yards. Slay had no chance against him. After the game, they asked Slay if they should have helped him, and he was like, "No, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Like, I got him." Like, but no, you didn't have him. Jim Schwartz and your defense combined didn't have him. No one had him basically on Monday Night Football. DK Metcalf had himself a game. And the Eagles as a whole, they're falling apart. Carson Wentz, I don't know what happened to him. Oh my God, he's struggling so bad. His decision making is worse than Jim Schwartz pregame. The only reason I remember there's 2 reasons why I remember Jim Schwartz. He's a defensive coordinator when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So shout out to him. He coached a pretty good game against the Patriots that day. And then I remember his time with the Lions and Megatron. The one thing that's like ingrained in my head is when they lost to the 49ers, and then Jim Schwartz went to meet Jim Harbaugh in the middle of the field. And I think Jim Harbaugh gave him a pat in the back a little too hard. He kind of shoved him in the back. And I guess Jim Schwartz was already like in the heat of the moment. He was too hot. He didn't like the little push he got on the nudge he got on the back. So he went after Jim Harbaugh and he like stomped his foot and he wanted to fight him. It was pretty funny. It was jokes. There was a lot of jokes going on that week. So it's good to see Jim Schwartz back in the headlines again. And again, for not the right reasons. He should have never said that to Megatron, in my opinion. I mean, not Megatron, DK Metcalf. And there you go. You paid for it, Jim Schwartz. But as far as the Seahawks, they got Chris Carson back. It was the Eagles. I don't think they had to use him too much. They only ran him 8 times for 51 yards. He got his touchdown. Carson's back. He runs ferociously. He always finishes runs like strong. So good to have him back if you're a Seahawks fan. The defense is stepping up. It looks like they're getting more pressure every week. Dunlap was a great trade. I'm going to keep saying it every week because every week he gets pressures. And I think he got a sack this week. So good for Dunlap. Good for the Seahawks. They're looking legit. None of these NFC teams look elite, whether it's the Saints, the Packers, the Bucks, the Seahawks. None of them look like they have a full team, like a full top to bottom team. But the Seahawks are turning it around. They still have that offense. They got Chris Carson back. Their defense is stepping up. They're getting pressure. And they have a soft schedule, so they could build a lot of mojo, a lot of confidence going into the playoffs. Giants, Jets, Washington, Rams, Niners. They could run the table. We'll see. They could potentially end up with the first spot in the NFC. I'm rooting for the Seahawks. I really like the Seahawks. They were my Super Bowl pick before the season. I had the Chiefs and the Seahawks meeting up in the Super Bowl. And I had the Seahawks winning. We'll see if that happens, but they're well on their way to make the playoffs, be a top 2 seed, potentially get a bye week if they could snatch up that number 1 seed from the Saints. But we'll see. Good job for the Seahawks. Defense looks like they're turning it around. Take it with a grain of salt, though, because it is the Eagles, and the Eagles are a mess. The Eagles can't protect Carson Wentz. He's the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. Their wide receivers can't get open. They're all a mess. Fulham, JJ, Arcega, Whiteside, whoever's out there, you can't get open. Ertz is hurt. He's not the same tight end that he once was. He's getting older. He was a matchup nightmare back in the day. Now he's not. Schwartz, their other tight end, he's all right. He's cool, but Wentz has no protection. He has no weapons. The running game struggles at times. And with all that being said, Wentz is playing terrible too. The decisions he's making, he's playing hero ball. He's holding on to the ball too much. He's making terrible throws. I don't even know what to say with the Eagles. They've been playing terrible this whole season, but people still thought they were going to win the division just because out of all the teams, the one team that you could possibly trust was the Eagles, especially after last year when Wentz carried them to the division title, even though they had a lot of injuries. And this season they have a lot of injuries, and the rest of the division sucks. And the division has gotten injuries. Prescott is gone, so you would think that having Wentz on a 4-year, $128 million contract in the division, and the Washington football team has Alex Smith coming back from a broken leg, and the Cowboys have Andy Dalton, and they lost their quarterback for the season, and the Giants have Jones, who's lackluster at best, and he's hurt now. You would think that the Eagles would be the team to make it out of the division. You would think that the team that paid their quarterback 4 years, $128 million, would be the favorites. But nope, they keep struggling. They lost their division lead, and I don't think they're going to make it back. The Eagles have the Packers. That's a loss. They have the Saints. That's a loss. They have the Cardinals. That's a loss. And then they finish with the Cowboys and the Washington football team. So they're going to be 0-3 in these next few weeks. I don't see them beating the Packers, the Saints. Those are two teams at the top of the conference. And then the Cardinals are going to be fighting for their playoff chances. So I don't see them upsetting the Cardinals. Thankfully for them, the rest of the division sucks. So I think the rest of the division should be in the same boat by the time they play the Cowboys and the Washington. So it could come down to those two games. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully one of these other teams picks it up and that those games are out of reach for the Eagles. Because they're what? The Eagles are 3-7-1. And they're about to lose 3 games in a row. So they'll be 3-10-1. If they're still alive and they're 3-10-1, Lord have mercy. What is going on with this division? But the Wentz contract is one of the worst contracts in the NFL. It hasn't even kicked in yet. It kicks in next year. They can't move on from Wentz. They owe him too much money. You can't bench him because he's owed 30 plus next year. He's owed 30 plus the year after. And if you cut him, if you bench him, you're like a fifth of your salary cap tied up to a benched quarterback, to a failed experiment. And it's sad to see. Eagles, I used to root for the Eagles sometimes. I like Dawkins. I like Westbrook. I like their Brown. I like, they had a lot of players that you could root for. I like McNabb. I like Deshaun Jackson. I like Macklin. I like Vic. I even like Kevin Cobb sometimes when he played good. Brent Selig. I'm not an Eagles fan, but I did root for them sometimes, especially in that division. They were like the easiest team to root for as a neutral, because I'm not going to root for the Cowboys. I'm not really going to root for the Giants. The Washington, who roots for Washington if you're a neutral? That's not really a team somebody roots for. The Eagles were that team that if you're a neutral, you kind of pick them, in my opinion. And so they're struggling. It's looking bad for them. It's looking bad for Wentz. It's looking bad for Doug Peterson. It's looking bad for that organization. Thankfully, they got a Super Bowl out of it like 3-4 years ago, so they could ride that into the sunset. But it's looking bad for Wentz. It's looking bad for Peterson. I think they need Peterson looks like he's on his last legs. He's not making great play calls. Wentz too. I don't know what you do with Wentz. That contract is terrible. I think these Wentz contract and Goff. I didn't go into depth about the Rams losing to the 49ers, which was embarrassing for them. Didn't go too deep into that. But one of the main reasons they lost that game is because Goff is mediocre at best. I believe he had like 3 turnovers in that game. And everything we know about the Rams, we've been knowing. They're a great team. They have a great defense. They probably have the best player in the league in Aaron Donald. They have one of the best coaches in the league offensive-wise, but they get dragged down by their quarterback. Goff is mediocre at best too. And they gave him a large contract too, and they're tied with him, and they can't move on from him. And it's the same thing with the Eagles, and they're from the same draft class. They went 1 and 2. And I remember when that happened, I said that they were both going to be bust because I did not like what I saw from them in college, and from watching like a lot of YouTube videos and analyzing a little bit of film. I did not like what I saw from them. Wentz doesn't throw the ball that good. I mean, his mechanics are kind of like messed up. He has a weird windup. And Goff, I just thought he didn't have the arm strength, and I don't think he was that smart. But they had some success in the NFL, mainly because of their coaches, in my opinion. McVay is a genius. I mean, we all know Goff. Goff would throw for like 300 yards, and like 250 of those would be run after the catch. So, I mean, we all know what's going on here. They paid him too early. I think this could influence other quarterbacks getting paid going forward, because you don't want to be stuck how the Eagles and the Rams are stuck right now. The Rams potentially have a Super Bowl window right now. They're still in a Super Bowl window. They have Aaron Donald. You're always going to be in a Super Bowl window, or kind of if you have Aaron Donald on the defensive side, just put something competent on the other side, and your coach is great on offense, and you still can't get it done. It's frustrating. It must be frustrating for LA fans, for Rams fans. It must be frustrating for Eagle fans, just seeing their team crumble and just seeing $128 million tied up to the quarterback, and you can't move on from him, and you have a rookie quarterback waiting in the bench, and you can't move on to him because Wentz is tied up to this contract. It's just frustrating. It's frustrating as a neutral fan, and we'll end at that just because I'm getting frustrated. But yeah, that was the Seahawks versus the Eagles. I went on a little tangent. Seahawks are looking great. They're 8-3, second in the NFC. Potentially could finish first. Eagles are third in the East, in the NFC East. 3-7-1. They can't move on from Wentz. They're probably going to fire Peterson if he doesn't turn it around. Ugly, ugly season.